The drawer slammed shut so hard the entire desk rattled, pens skittering like frightened insects across polished wood. Elias Moore stood frozen, chest heaving, knuckles white, the echo of the impact still ringing in the office like a gunshot. Before the sound fully died, he grabbed the paper on the desk and crushed it in his fist, then slowly flattened it again, smoothing the creases with shaking fingers. Before the story goes any further, before regret, before fear, before everything spirals, pause for 1 second. If you've ever felt trapped in a life that looks perfect from the outside but feels empty on the inside, tap like, subscribe, and stay with this till the end. This isn't just a story, it's a warning. The words on the paper stared back at him. I hereby tender my resignation, effective immediately. Elias swallowed hard. 28 years old. Corner office. 6-figure salary. A future so neatly packaged it made people jealous. He had everything he was supposed to want, and yet his hand wouldn't stop trembling. I can't do this anymore, he said out loud, his voice cracking in the silence. I can't keep pretending this is enough. The office smelled like stale coffee and printer ink. His reflection in the dark window looked older than 28. Tired. Hollow. His phone buzzed on the desk. Mom. He stared at the screen like it might explode. Then he answered. Elias. Her voice was bright, cheerful, proud. Honey, are you coming to dinner tonight? Your father wants to celebrate your promotion. The promotion. The word landed like a weight on his chest. Another title. Another raise. Another invisible chain snapping shut around his ankles. Mom. His throat tightened. He closed his eyes. I quit today. Silence. Not the gentle kind. The sharp, stretched kind that made his ears ring. You what? Her voice jumped. Elias. Don't joke about things like that. I'm not joking. You're throwing away everything you worked for, she said quickly, panic seeping in. The salary, the benefits, your future. Do you know how many people would kill for your job? I know, he said softly. That's exactly why I'm leaving. You're being emotional, she insisted. Everyone hates their job sometimes. You push through it. That's life. Elias stared at the resignation letter, at his own name typed neatly at the bottom. I don't want this life, he said. I don't want to wake up at 60 wondering where my life went. Her breath hitched. Your father is going to be devastated. I'm already devastated, Elias whispered. She started crying. He ended the call before it broke him. That night he packed one suitcase. Just one. He moved through the apartment like a ghost, ignoring the tailored suits, the watches, the framed certificates lining the walls. Symbols of success he'd barely earned the energy to feel proud of. These can rot, he muttered, shoving jeans and a few shirts into the suitcase. All of it. At the airport, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Travelers rushed past with purpose, with destinations, with reasons. Elias stood at the ticket counter, heart pounding. One way to Lisbon, he said before fear could catch up. No return, the agent asked. No return. As he walked toward the gate, he caught his reflection in the terminal window. For the first time in years, his eyes were alive. Terrified, but alive. I deserve to live, he told himself. Not just exist. The plane lifted off at dawn, slicing through the clouds, carrying Elias Moore away from the man he was pretending to be. And then, he didn't go. 12 years later, Elias sat in another corner office, in another glass tower, under the same buzzing fluorescent lights. The email glowed on his monitor. Subject: Congratulations on your promotion. Senior Vice President. Age 40. Congratulations, his assistant said, placing a bottle of champagne on the desk. Thanks, he replied automatically, eyes never leaving the screen. She lingered. Are you okay? Fine, he lied. After she left, he opened the bottom drawer of his desk and pulled out the resignation letter. Yellowed now. Folded and unfolded so many times it felt soft. I was going to do it, he whispered. I almost did. His phone rang. Mom. Elias, your father and I are so proud. Senior Vice President. We always knew you'd be something special. Something special. Thanks, Mom. We're celebrating this weekend. Sure. He ended the call and stared at the skyline. Somewhere out there was a version of himself boarding a plane to Lisbon. Brave. Reckless. Free. He's dead, Elias said quietly. I killed him. The years rolled forward without mercy. Promotions arrived like scheduled trains. His bank account grew heavy. He bought a house too big for one man. Rooms stayed untouched. Silence became his most frequent companion. Every birthday he made the same promise. Next year, I'll change something. Next year became 45, then 50. At 55, he retired with a golden parachute and an empty chest. The first morning of retirement, he woke at 6 a.m. out of habit. No emails. No meetings. No reason. I won, he told the ceiling. Didn't I? The words sounded ridiculous in the stillness. He wandered the house, touching expensive furniture he felt nothing for. In the attic, buried beneath boxes, he found the suitcase. Dust-coated, half-packed. Inside lay a faded Lisbon guidebook. I was going to live loudly, he whispered. What happened to me? That was when he met Mara. She laughed with the barista like life was a private joke. Her joy was effortless, unapologetic. You dropped this, she said, handing him his napkin. You look like someone who needs a smile. They talked for 2 hours. She was a painter, a traveler, someone who chose experiences over security. I was too busy living to settle for existing, she said, smiling. For the first time in decades, Elias felt hope. Dangerous, fragile hope. If this is already hitting too close to home, don't look away. Like the video now, so this reaches someone else who's silently suffocating. And stay with the story. It gets heavier from here. Elias went home that night feeling lighter than he had in years, as if something locked inside his chest had cracked open. He stood in front of the bathroom mirror, studying his own face, and barely recognized the man looking back. I think I'm falling in love, he said quietly, testing the words. The reflection didn't argue. Mara came into his life like a disruption he hadn't planned for and couldn't control. She laughed loudly, talked with her hands, asked questions that didn't have easy answers. What do you dream about? She asked one night, curled against him on the couch, her head resting on his chest. Elias froze. Dreams. The word felt foreign. I don't think I have any, he said finally. She lifted her head, eyes sharp but kind. That's not true. It is, he insisted. I used to. I think I used them all up. No, she said firmly. You buried them. That's different. Her certainty scared him. With her, he laughed, real laughter, the kind that shook his body and made his ribs ache. He found himself telling stories he hadn't thought about in decades. The younger version of himself crept into conversations without being invited. You ever wanted to leave everything behind? He asked her once. All the time, she replied. That's how I know when it's time to go somewhere new. 6 months later, Elias proposed on a beach at sunset. He didn't plan it meticulously like a board presentation. He just dropped to one knee, heart hammering. I don't know how to do this perfectly, he said, voice shaking. But I know I don't want to lose you. Yes, Mara whispered. 1,000 times yes. People congratulated him. His parents cried happy tears. Friends said things like, looks like retirement suits you. But beneath the smiles, something dark stirred. The dreams started 3 weeks before the wedding. Elias woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. The image burned into his mind. A younger version of himself pounding silently on a glass wall, eyes wild with rage. You're killing me, the younger Elias mouthed. Slowly, Elias stopped looking at mirrors. 2 weeks before the ceremony, he went searching for a document and found the suitcase again. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside were notebooks, dozens of them, pages filled with story ideas, travel routes, business plans scribbled in youthful handwriting. I was going to write, he murmured. I was going to see the world. He flipped through letters addressed to future Elias. Please don't forget, one read. Be brave, said another. Don't let comfort turn into a coffin. He snapped the suitcase shut and shoved it back into the closet. 1 week before the wedding, Mara found him sitting on the floor of his study, shoulders shaking. What's wrong? She asked, rushing to him. I can't do this, he whispered, her face drained of color. The wedding. Everything, he said. I'm terrified. Of loving you, of losing you, of finally living and ruining it. She held him tightly. Fear doesn't mean stop. It means you care. But fear had always meant stop for Elias. The night before the wedding, sleep refused to come. He sat alone in the study, surrounded by trophies of a life that looked impressive and felt empty. I chose safety every time, he said to the darkness. And I'm still scared. He thought of the man who'd almost boarded a plane to Lisbon. I'm sorry, Elias whispered. I should have listened. He took out expensive stationery and wrote carefully. Dear Mara, don't cry for me. I loved you more than I knew how to handle. I'm sorry I couldn't be braver. Elias. He placed the note on her pillow. Then he opened the medicine cabinet. I finally understand, he told his reflection. The worst death isn't when the heart stops. It's when the soul gives up. The morning of the wedding dawned bright. Too bright. Mara found the note first. Then him. The wedding became a funeral. At the cemetery days later, Elias's mother sobbed uncontrollably. He was always so quiet about his pain. Mara stood still, eyes dry, heart shattered in a way tears couldn't touch. After everyone left, she returned to the house that would never be theirs. In the study, she noticed a locked drawer. The key sat inside. She opened it. Notebooks, manuscripts, letters. One line stopped her breath. The tragedy isn't dying young. It's living long enough to become someone you don't recognize. Mara closed the notebook slowly. If you're still watching, the narrator would say if Elias could hear it, don't scroll away. Like the video right now. Someone out there needs this wake-up call. She picked up her phone and made a decision Elias never could. I'm selling the house, she said. Then she booked a flight. One way. To Lisbon. The airport smelled like coffee and movement. Like beginnings disguised as chaos. Mara stood in line with Elias's journals pressed against her chest. Her fingers digging into the worn covers as if they might disappear if she let go. Around her, people complained about delays, scrolled on phones, argued about seats. Life continued, indifferent. She felt hollow and full at the same time. Don't cry, she whispered to herself. Not yet. On the plane, she opened the first journal. The pages were filled with Elias's younger handwriting. Messy, passionate, urgent. I don't want to wake up one day and realize I played it safe into oblivion. Her throat tightened. You didn't know, she murmured. You really didn't. Lisbon greeted her with warm air and narrow streets that felt alive. Music spilled from cafes. People laughed loudly, unapologetically. It was everything Elias had dreamed of and never touched. She rented a small apartment overlooking the river. No exes. No pretense. Every morning, she read his journals. Every afternoon, she painted. Every evening, she walked until her feet hurt, letting the city teach her how to breathe again. One night, sitting on the balcony, she spoke to him like he was there. You were so afraid of failing, she said softly. But you never failed at loving. You loved deeply. You just didn't know how to forgive yourself. Months passed. Mara began sharing Elias's writings online. Short excerpts. Fragments of a man's soul that never got to finish speaking. Messages poured in. This feels like my life. I'm crying at work. I just quit my job. His words were saving people. That's your legacy, she whispered one night. Not the titles. Not the money. Back home, Elias's parents discovered the sale of the house. How could she do this? His mother demanded. That was his life. No, his father said quietly, staring at one of Elias's old journals Mara had mailed them. It was his cage. On what would have been Elias's 60th birthday, Mara hosted a small gathering in Lisbon. Strangers came. Artists, travelers, people who'd read Elias's words and felt less alone. She read aloud from his journal. I think I'm choosing safety because I'm afraid of failing. But what if the real failure is never trying? The room was silent. Mara looked up, eyes shining. He never thought his voice mattered, she said. But it does. Yours does too. If you're still here, still listening, this is where you pause and ask yourself a dangerous question. What version of you is pounding on the glass, begging to be let out? Like the video, comment if this feels personal. Stay till the end. Years passed. Elias Moore became known not as an executive, but as a writer whose work was published posthumously. His unfinished novel was edited and released. It climbed charts slowly, quietly, fueled by word of mouth. Readers said the same thing over and over. It felt like he was talking to me. Mara never corrected them. One evening, she stood on the same beach where Elias had proposed, watching the sun sink into the water. She placed his journal beside her. You finally made it, she said. People see you now. She smiled through tears. I wish you'd stayed. Back in another city, another man sat alone in a high-rise apartment, watching one of Elias's quotes go viral on his phone. I'm 52, the man whispered. Is it too late? He booked a ticket. Another woman read the same quote and ended a relationship that was slowly killing her spirit. Another quit a job. Another chose honesty over comfort. Elias had feared living quietly. Instead, his silence had roared. One night, Mara wrote her own entry in his final journal. You thought courage meant leaping without fear. You were wrong. Courage is choosing anyway. I'm choosing every day for both of us. She closed the journal and looked out over the city lights. Thank you, she said. And somewhere, if belief meant anything at all, Elias finally rested. The story didn't end with silence. Kept moving, carried forward by people who never met Elias Moore but felt like they knew him better than anyone else ever had. In a small cafe in Berlin, a woman underlined one of his sentences with shaking hands. The tragedy isn't dying young. It's living long enough to become someone you don't recognize. She closed the book, stared out the window, and whispered, I recognize myself too much. In New York, a man in a tailored suit sat in his car outside his office building for 40 minutes, unable to turn the key. Elias's words echoing in his head. What if the real failure is never trying? He didn't go in that day. Mara watched these ripples spread from afar, never interfering, never claiming credit. She knew the truth. Elias had always had a voice. He had just been too afraid to use it while he was alive. On quiet mornings, she still spoke to him. You would have hated the attention, she said once, smiling sadly. You'd say it was too late. She paused, then shook her head. You were wrong. It wasn't too late. You just didn't know it. She kept his last journal with her always. The pages were nearly full now, half his words, half hers. 2 lives intertwined on paper. On the final page, she wrote something different. If someone is reading this years from now, understand this: Elias didn't die because he was weak. He died because he spent a lifetime silencing himself. Don't repeat that mistake. She closed the book gently. The world kept turning. People kept waking up, going to jobs they hated, relationships that drained them, lives that looked impressive and felt unbearable. And somewhere, Elias's story found them at exactly the wrong or right moment. A college student canceled a safe major and switched to art. A mother finally left a marriage built on fear. A retiree sold his house and moved somewhere warm, laughing for the first time in years. None of them knew Elias. All of them were changed by him. One afternoon, Mara returned to the airport. Same sounds, same movement, different weight in her chest. She stood by the windows watching planes lift off. You were standing right here, she whispered. Weren't you? She imagined him younger, terrified, alive with possibility. You almost chose yourself, she said softly. I wish you had. She took out his journal and reread the very first entry. I don't want a life that looks good. I want one that feels real. Mara nodded. Then let this be real. She left the airport and walked back into the city. No rush, no fear of missing out. She was exactly where she needed to be. And Elias? Elias lived on in every person who dared to stop waiting. Because that was the cruelest lie he had believed, that there would be time later. That safety was kindness. That fear was wisdom. It wasn't. Fear had stolen his life one careful decision at a time. If you're listening to this and your chest feels tight, that's not coincidence. That's recognition. That's the part of you that knows this story isn't really about Elias. It's about you. It's about the version of you that keeps saying, next year. It's about the dream you packed away in a suitcase and shoved into a closet. It's about the life you keep postponing so you don't upset anyone else. Elias thought choosing safety would save him. Didn't. He didn't die the night before his wedding. He died the day he didn't get on that plane. So here's the truth, and it's uncomfortable. You don't need permission to live. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to wait until it makes sense. You just need to choose. Because one day, you will wake up with nothing left to run from but yourself. And by then, it might feel too late. Don't let your story be found in a drawer after you're gone. Don't let someone else live your dreams for you. Don't let fear write the ending. If the story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit the like button right now so this reaches someone who needs to hear it before it's too late. Subscribe for more stories that challenge comfort and wake you up to what really matters. And comment below, what's the one dream you've been postponing because of fear? Your future self is watching. Don't let them down.